Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here from Team Whoopers. Very excited, as always, to welcome you to the Week 3 athlete briefing for our Summer Run Challenge. Per usual, we're going to start with a little Week 2 review. So our first run from Week 2, our first key run from Week 2, it was that threshold run. So it's the first time hitting this zone in this challenge. So as a matter of fact, it's been the first time we've hit this zone in quite a few challenges. So I hope you enjoyed getting back to threshold. So a reminder, this is something that could be described as comfortably uncomfortable and a pace that you might be able to hold for a maximum of 1 hour if you were very well trained at running threshold and running for an hour or more. So the workout was based on a 4x3 minute structure. So a reminder, there's a bit of an intro to threshold. So very quickly in this challenge, we're going to start to extend those intervals out. We're going to get a little bit more time on the work aspect, not a lot more time on the recovery. So hopefully you started to feel what that pace felt like a little bit. Got a bit of intro into threshold here in Week 2. Run number 2 of Week 2, our VO2 max run. These are shorter, harder intervals. So we're going to extend, here in Week 2, we extended the duration of these just a little bit. Reminder, Week 1 was the intro at VO2 max, and we did a bit of a step up here in Week 2. And we're certainly going to do a step up here coming into Week 3 as well, and a little bit more time at VO2 max. And finally, our run number 3, our key run of week number 2, our endurance run, pretty much always. Hopefully the best run of the week. Light, breezy, beautiful. Walk away knowing that you had much, much more to give. A little bit of housekeeping. Want to make sure everyone's continuing to go into the portal. Now more than ever, you're kind of forced to go into the portal to see the workouts. Want to make sure you're going in during the course of the week, checking the box saying that you completed the workout. 100% completion percentage is the absolute best way to put yourself in a position to be successful in this challenge. So keep going in there, checking the box, pushing towards that 100% or as close to 100% as you can possibly get. Now to our Week 3 workouts here. Run number 1, threshold run. So the composition of the week is going to remain the same here. So we're starting with a threshold run, but it's going to be progressed a little bit. So the base of this workout is a 4x4. So if you're just going off the base workouts, we kind of went from 3-minute intervals to 4-minute intervals. We'll end up going from about 12 minutes to 16 minutes at zone. So it's a pretty good jump. We're wanting to push towards 20 minutes plus at threshold when we're really in like kind of the sweet spot for that workout. So as I mentioned, this is an extension of time at threshold, aka more time in zone. So the more time we have to spend in that zone in particular, especially warmed up in the zone, the more benefit we're getting from that workout. Just a reminder, the threshold we're talking about is we're referring to lactate threshold. So there are 3 thresholds. There's aerobic threshold, there's lactate threshold, and then there's anaerobic threshold. And so anaerobic threshold we've worked at in the past in challenges with some of the anaerobic capacity work that we've done. But typically threshold in running, and definitely when we're referring to threshold here, is that lactate threshold. And there's an energy zone, that threshold energy zone, that's going to contribute from races all the way from the mile to the marathon. So it's a very, very powerful energy zone to work. It's going to be a real workhorse for us at races of so many different distances. So really make sure you come in, take advantage, and nail those threshold workouts. Key run number 2, VO2 max run. Once again, warm up with lunge matrix, easy running and strides. So that is kind of there, baked into most of those threshold workouts as well. However, I'm going to bring it up right here because I want to re-emphasize that this is a relatively intense workout. The intensity of this is higher in terms of the pace, obviously, than threshold. So we want to make sure we really spend time getting our body good and ready to tackle these more challenging intervals. So if you're a person that might be a little bit slower to warm up, it is okay to add a little bit more jogging time, to add a second round of striders, to take a break in that warm up somewhere and re-perform your lunge matrix series. But whatever you do, you want to make sure that you're good and ready because the intensity of this workout is going to be relatively high and the paces is certainly pretty intense. You want to come in feeling fresh and ready. So, all that being said, the base of this workout is 5 by 2 minutes at VO2 max, 1 minute easy. So Couple things to keep in mind here that are going to make these be much more productive, much more effective, feel better for you. Don't start too fast in these. These workouts, even though it's only 5 intervals, 5 by 2, 10 minutes total time at zone, if you way overshoot your target early, it's going to make those final intervals feel a lot more difficult. So this is a new zone for a lot of people. Kind of zone 5, zone 6 and up is something that not a lot of athletes always work in. So it takes a little bit of time to find the pacing here, but just be thoughtful not to overshoot the target. That's what we see a lot of times in new athletes to the pace zones. They know it's a fast pace. They know that it's a hard effort. So they go too hard, too early. So hopefully as you keep going through these things week by week, you'll start to feel a little bit more comfort in finding that pace quickly. You want to make sure as best as possible to not overshoot that range early. 2, maximize that recovery time. It's not a ton of time. It's only a minute based on 2 minutes of effort, but you want to be able to allow your body you want to be able to allow your heart rate to settle down. You want to get your breath back. You need to maximize that 1 minute recovery time. It is ideal to be able to maintain a light jog. However, the pace is almost completely irrelevant of that jog. So you can bring it all the way down to a shuffle pace, hopefully maintain that light jog in order to recover there. It's important to get yourself ready to be able to take on the next interval. So try as best as possible to maximize that recovery. And our key run number 3, once again, our long run or our endurance run. Hopefully the best run of the week. I got mine on deck for tomorrow, got my buddies pinged, starting at 8 a.m. So I'm looking forward to it already, and hopefully you are as well. So we're gonna jump straight into some questions that came up from the Facebook group here. First question, my paces don't align exactly to treadmill paces. I have 3 options to remedy this. Use the treadmill setting that's slightly slower, the treadmill setting that is slightly faster, or split the intervals and do both, 1 slower, 1 faster. What is the best way? So it's funny, this question has come up a lot actually over the last year and a half or so, and I finally figured it's worth addressing. So this would fall into that bucket where sometimes I say, we end up kind of painting with a wide brush. If you're looking at a pace zone and we're looking at the difference of, let's just say 10 minutes a mile versus 10:02 versus 9:58, all of those are fine. It's not so specific that we have to be spot on every single interval. So much like a pace range that we use in Easy Pace, the rest we provide pace targets, these zones aren't exact targets. We like to use target metrics because it gives you a real finite target to shoot for. But I would say, certainly use the faster target if you feel like you're capable of it. If you feel like you need to dial it back down and have that slightly slower target that's just like a few seconds less under that, no problem. I saw someone made a kind of response to this question saying that they, for their intervals, go faster, for their recoveries, go a little bit slower. That would work great. What I certainly wouldn't do is try to track back and forth of which one you did faster and which one you did slower, only because it's a little bit maddening. But if that's your thing, then by all means do it. But point being, all options are going to be correct as long as you're getting very, very close there. So don't worry about it too much. Next question here was, is there a preference towards doing strength with shoes on versus just socks? I will speak for myself. I've heard Ryan Hopkins talk about this before. It tends to be, and especially in this style of strength training, just socks is great. You kind of kicking the shoes off, allowing your feet to touch the ground, you're actually going to get a little bit more strengthening of the foot itself. You're going to have a little bit more balance work to do. So if you're a healthy athlete, you don't have any kind of supportive issues, any kind of foot issues that you're aware of, absolutely give it a try to do your strength work sans shoe. Now you have to be certainly cognizant if you're not doing this in your house or kind of a private gym setting. If you're at the local fitness club, there might be rules and guidelines based on shoes versus non-shoes, etc. So you always want to make sure you're following those rules. You want to make sure to be safe. But if you have the option, I would kick the shoes and give it a try, barefoot or with socks. Question here on the strength program. It said, on strength programming for Thursdays, we did dumbbell RDLs, which dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. We're supposed to do these were we supposed to do these a single leg? And so you found a little bit of a discrepancy there in the workout. So the workout is written as a standard RDL. which is what the video demo is. But I noticed there is a note about 20-second rest between legs, which I think is just a typo on our end, to be quite honest. So single leg deadlift is an excellent exercise. It's an excellent exercise for runners, and it's a progression of the deadlift right now. I would continue to stick with that traditional deadlift at the moment, only because there is a progression of reps and sets that moves back and forth that Ryan has set here, and I want you to have more consistency. So if you have been doing a single deadlift the whole time, continue with the single deadlift. If you've been doing the traditional deadlift, continue with the traditional deadlift. Ignore that little bit of a note. You're gonna just kind of follow that progression of reps and sets. But yes, a little quirk in the system on our end here. Next question here was, the VO2 max run this week, I could not go to easy pace for recovery and had to stop and finally could walk after 30 seconds, but it was really hard. I feel wrecked the next day. Any tips here? Any suggestions for running these outside and hitting the pace? My watch has a lag and I don't want to run and stare at my watch. So, a lot to unpack here. And in terms of effort level, I would actually say it probably sounds like you're doing it just about right. These intervals are hard. You know, I know I've kind of said a few times these are shorter, harder intervals, but they're hard. You're working above your threshold, you're generating lactic acid, you're really deep breathing. So when you come to the end of these intervals, it should feel like you worked hard and you're really kind of huffing and puffing for air a little bit. So the effort level sounds about right here. In terms of the recovery, as I mentioned earlier, it's certainly ideal to be able to maintain the jog. So what happens when you come down to that walk, although it's relatively quick, is you start to recover very quickly. Your heart rate kind of plunges back towards easy, and it actually gets a little bit harder to start back again. However, the pace of that jog is unimportant. It could be all the way down to just 3.5, 4 miles an hour if you're doing it on a treadmill, or 10, 12 minutes a mile, 13, 14 minutes a mile, whatever feels particularly and incredibly easy. It's the pace of that recovery is not important. The thing that it was important, I mentioned earlier, is that you're able to recover, but want to maintain that jog as best as possible. So in terms of the recoveries, a lot of it depends on your familiarity with the pace, with your history of this style of workouts. Because what I think a lot of people fear is that if they don't go to that walk or don't go to a dead stop, that they won't recover, the break's too short. As you have repetitions through this, as you repeat VO2 max workouts, you'll kind of start to learn. Well, a couple things will happen. One, you'll get better at it. Two, you'll make actual physical adaptations that make you also better at it. And three, you'll start to get a little bit of confidence that you actually can recover there on that jog. So that's what I would kind of push you towards right now. Is it's very kind of mentally easy to hit the end of the interval, feel like your chest is pounding and burning, and want to walk. If you can push yourself a little bit and just go to the tiniest bit of a shuffle jog and know that you can do it, that you will recover, and that you're able to get back into the next set, then hopefully you start to build a little bit of a confidence on that. The pacing of these intervals is just like any other pace zone. It requires practice, it requires repetitions. The last thing I want any athlete doing is running, staring at their watch of any interval, of any duration. It's not a very productive kind of use of your time while you're running. It's certainly not a posture that is going to help you speed up to be staring at your wrist. And it's just overall a little bit annoying when you want to just be running and kind of hopefully running quiet. Running quiet is certainly the goal. So a few things to do on pacing while running outside in particular. So first, let's talk about the watch. I pretty much always have my watch on outside. Great tool. So it's not that I'm not using the watch or not ignoring the watch. But what I will do, instead of staring at the pace, because you nailed it, there is a lag. It's going to take a while for that to adjust in an interval that's only 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. That 20-second adjustment, you've just missed half to 25% of the interval in terms of accuracy there. So what I would do is actually look at my split time at the end of the interval. So 1 minute, 2 minute interval, run as close as you can by feel. You've still got multiple repetitions to follow, and make the adjustment at the end of the interval based on the effort. Were you a little bit too fast? Try to dial the effort back a little bit. Were you a little bit too slow? Just try to move the effort up a little bit. Once again, I'm painting with a wide brush here, so it takes pro level running to really like get down to the second time and time and time again. And that comes with thousands and thousands and thousands of reps of knowing exactly what that pace feels like. So don't get too frustrated here early on. We're wanting to push, we're wanting to practice, and practice is the key here of going back to it, and you'll get a little bit better each time. The other way to do it is to use a track, a measured path, something along those lines where you have kind of set visual markers and distances. And then instead of looking at the pace on your wearable device, all you need to do is look at the timer. So I'll use this example of if we're running, and I'll have to throw the caveat, it's a little bit harder on a time-based workout than a distance-based workout because you're gonna have to do a little bit of math to figure out how far you need to travel in 1 minute, 2 minutes, etc. But we'll use it on, let's say on a 2-minute interval, you're gonna cover 200 meters. That, then that's a little bit slow there. We'll change that up a little bit. In a 2-minute interval, you're gonna cover 400 meters. So 400 meters, that means you need to be at the 200 meter mark at 1 minute. That means you need to be at the 100 meter mark at 30 seconds. So you can break it down visually on a track, and then all you have to do instead of waiting on the pace to adjust is look at the amount of time you've been running on that interval. And that's going to be a very fixed, finite number that's not ping-ponging at all. It's going to be perfect based on when you started the interval. So that is one of my favorite ways to work on pacing. It's actually use a track or a measured path where you know how to break down the actual intervals of it, you know where you need to be, and you can use visual markers as well as the timer to try to find the pace there. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, certainly follow up, because I'm sure, I'm fully confident that other people are going to experience that same issue as well. Well, friends, that is it here for our week 3 briefing. I hope everyone has an amazing end of week 2. Thank you as always for showing up here on a Friday evening. I can't wait to see you again next week. Have a great one.